Dee-dee-dee-dee. Boing. Right, so let's see, we fired that one up, do not that one, do not that one. Take that one off, put that one on. Ooh, bring the volume down. Being problems if we don't bring the volume. I know. Take that one off there. Okay, so that's too bad. Take that one off. There you go. We're live. Hi guys. How you doing? I refreshed the. What the hell was that? Something went buzz. Hang on. We seem to have a problem here. Looks like it's preset itself wrong again as usual. Manage the feed. Sensitivity. Follow. Reconnect. Snooze. Profile. Favorites. Contents. If you ever do get one of these professional accounts, they're fun because all the settings you've got normally on Facebook, where are a pain in the arse anyway, well, times that by 10 because you've got loads of options and things that you can do. But you must have something like about 50,000 people every time you go online, so it looks like we've got 75 at the moment on board. Hi, how you doing guys? Yeah, thanks for joining us. All around the world, by the looks of it. Yeah. Okay, it looks like I need to retune everything when I've done it, so that's not a problem. Looks like it ain't going to hit as many as I wanted because it's only set for friends, so it's not set for the world. Without stopping it, starting it, but I'm not going to bother with that. We can sort that out later. So, how are you doing, guys? Hope you're well. Had a nice little present come today from one of the firms that I usually buy my technical bits and bobs. They gave me one of these cameras. They said I needed another camera, and if you look here, I've not got it actually set up, but you see this here. This is one of these cameras that it fixes in the light bulb. It's not even set up yet. And what it does, it rotates, you can control it, moves about like a proper fan, it follows you and things like that. I think it was about 25 quid or something, but they gave me this one probably to promote it or whatever, I don't know. And it's one of these smart camera ones. You will set it up for your phone, but it's also ideal for having a camera that shoots straight down here. So when people want to see me playing the keyboard, this one, and all the work I do on that one, to bring in the sounds and that, this is the thing I've done. And what it is, I've took out the disco light bulb, which is that one that normally works round and rotates, but it stopped rotating, and plugged it in here. And as you can see, this thing moves around. It's got a little camera there, and you can control it from your phone. It only came today though, so I haven't really had a chance to get it all set up. It will work off the phone, but what I want to do is try and log it into this thing so I can actually change. So I've got 3 cameras at the moment. We've got this one, we've obviously got this one, and we've also got, let's get this right, that one. So, you know, if I go on Audacity, you can see exactly what I'm looking at. And Here are the three it's called the screenshot, you see, so you can see it there, here, just there with it. And then you've got the capture camera, which is that one. And then you've got the keyboard camera. And then what I want to do is incorporate this one. So then I'll have another camera that can see over the top here when I'm playing. And it'd be pretty cool. Now I know it works off the phone, and you download the software and that, but whether you can get it to talk to Streamlabs or run it through Wi-Fi, I'm yet to do some playing about. Probably will, probably won't, I don't know. But we'll see how it goes. Anyway guys, hope you're all well. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm not long got out the hot tub to chill out. It's been hot today, isn't it? I've been cutting all my hedges. They were about that high, now they're down to that high, and they're all nice and neat and tidy. And got me a bit hot, so I thought, well, I'd jump in the hot tub. And the neighbour was getting a bit hot, like, so says, jump in the hot tub after me, like, so he did come. I think he might be getting one now. So yeah, it's all good stuff. And I can hear myself talking back on the phone, so that needs to come back down. So I'm monitoring myself on there, and there. So it's going to be really hot tonight again, but in some places it's going to be thunderstorms. So it's going to be hit and miss. Already sorted out my pool, that's looking nice and blue. It's not quite clear, so I'm not quite ready to go in it yet at the moment. It's only about that depth before it gets clear, and then you can't really see the bottom. So, two ideas I've got at the moment. I'm getting rid of all the vacuum hoses, what you usually have. And I'm going to get a robot that goes on the bottom, cleans the bottom, and one for the top, which is a skimmer. Same sort of thing, it's a floating robot. Gathers all the top stuff. And then you just empty it, and it works off a panel, solar panel on top of its head. And yeah, these things have been out a little while, but they're in the £500-600. Obviously, new things, they come out and they start coming down. Well, they've been about 2 years out, these things have in America. So now you can pick them up for something about £40-50, like, you know. So we're going to get a skimming robot, and I'll get a proper robot what you charge, and then you just put it in the water and off it goes. And the one that I've got my eye on, it actually cleans the sides. So there's two robots we're going to have. And on the lawn side, I'm keeping the lawnmower. I'm getting rid of the strimmer because I do it now with the old hands. I find it more refreshing and chilled out with the old hands instead of chucking stones everywhere with a flipping strimmer. So it's a lot easier with just a nipple thing. My mum had one for her lawn, and basically it was just easy enough when I had it to actually use that. So it's just a normal standard clip, 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 clip. Does a better job. Finding all my little stones that I covered over the years. So now all the lawn, them are going to come out, because you can make a nice, lovely job of it. Really going to make the back lawn, back place really better than it is now. It's really nice now, but I've got more ideas. And then the idea will be, I'm going to get a little robot mower. Now what it is, it's called a muncher. It doesn't actually pick the things up, it actually munches it and puts it back in the ground. These things have been around in America for 3, 4, 5 years, something like that. They've only just took off in the UK. And of course the prices have come right down again low. So, you know, so I'll look for one for about a couple £100 or about £100 or 50. You can get one. I've seen them for £100 been basically given away or trying to, but no one's been buying them. So I thought, well, what I'm doing is I'm going to get one and see how it goes. And if it's any good, from the actual string ones, where you actually make little strings around the edges, so it goes up to the strings, goes to the next. the AI versions now actually map out the lawn before they do out, and then they go. It's like the little robot Hoover I've got that goes around the house. It does the same thing. It maps out the place, and it knows where to go, and then off it goes. So you'll have 4 robots. Well, one for the pool at the bottom, one for the pool at the top. Robot that does the actual lawning, and I've got a robot cleaner that goes around the house. Technology, eh? I love it. How you doing, Colin? Hope you're well. Ain't it warm, eh? I just jumped in the hot tub. It was lovely in there, lovely. Nice 86 in there, 86 Fahrenheit, which was beautiful. And then when you come out, lovely and cool. Walk around the grass, always earth yourself, and that's the best thing you do. I've got my heartbeat right down to 56, which is great. When I went in there, it was pretty warm. I was up to about just over 100, which is a normal standard for a heartbeat anyway. But when you come out, it's nice 56, which is lovely. So yeah, got this camera system. So once that's up and running, people will be able to see me play this one. At the moment, you've got the camera for this one. Not that one. Take that one off. That one. And the sort of picture is going to be on this one. All good stuff. So I hope you're all keeping cool. Yeah, we're going to have some big thunderstorms apparently. So that should cool the place down a little bit, shouldn't it? Whoa. Okay, let's change the cameras and we'll do some stuff for you. And as it's going to be raining, what's the beat we got? Let's have a look. That's not quite the one I've got my eye on. Let's see if we can do a pop one. That's a bit weird, isn't it? Interesting, yeah, okay, let's he says, looking for the tempo. What's the tempo from? Let's try a bit of Raining Men. Not really the right rhythm, not really wanted a beat for a dance. Let's have a look. Oh, that'll do. Okay, bit of the Weather Girls, Raining Men. That's pretty cool. It's not coming out how I wanted it, but never mind. Well, we started off with Raining Men from the Weather Girls, and we ended up with a bit of Jumpy Jar Equinox Rendezvous Houston. Yeah, I've been watching him. He's now actually a one-man band on a stage with loads of people. Plays the main bits, which is pretty cool, because they didn't want him to do any of that miming, but everything else is all programmed. None of this is. None of this is. This is all live. This is how he would normally make it before you start playing about with computers and trying to device the audience. Okay, I'm back. Oh, he's done it for years and years and years. And there you go. Me, I play by ear, so I wouldn't know. Ah, it's better. Wait a minute, which one? A lot of combinations to put together there, and a lot of combinations that get asked every week for that one. How we got on there? Hey Neil, how you doing? Nelson, and what's that? Alios, hello, how are you, mate? And my mate Paul in there, thanks a lot for looking. Whew. Well, next week I hope to have a new camera installed. It's actually installed now, actually. Let me just go and show you. We've got about 3 cameras going at the moment. So we've got this one, which is over the keyboard. This one, which is here. Hello, how you doing? Orange and lemon. Oh, yeah, but I needed that. I'm sweating like hell. Okay, so that was that one. And then if I go up here and take this one off, see, now you got an idea of what I'm looking at. This one's called a screen camera, and it's also built in the software and that. So basically, as you can see, this is normally what I'm looking at, and then you've got my sound, which is running through the microphone, which is USB audio, which is through the USB through my mixer. Simple, just a simple system. And over on the right hand side, these things here, they're my cameras. So I can go from there, hello, to here, go off on that one, then I can go on to that one, take that one off there, that goes to that one, and then we go up to this one, and I take that one off there, bring that one on there, that's it. So if I take this one off and put it on, then it goes from the keyboard there. Now then, the one I've got here is a complete different thing altogether. This is a security camera, and it's got a rotating head, and it moves about a bit and does some more things. I got it last night actually, and I've only just plugged it up there, so basically I know that works, but I haven't really got it going through the camera. What I really want to do is get it going through the film, the actual thing, and run it through here so you guys can see it and all, because a lot of people say that when I play this one, you can't really see what I'm looking at, and there's a lot of work that goes on behind this one, mainly me. And this one basically is, they're 40-year-old keyboards, this is a 30-year-old keyboard. So it's a little bit more modern, although I did use some great 70s synthesizers on there, so. But you'll hear the difference, and then hopefully this camera here will be able to pick me up. So that's what we'll be playing about with tomorrow, instead of the edges. Done all my edges. Brought them down from 7 foot down to about 5 foot, I think. Okay, let's do a little bit of erasure. Let's just find the right bank for it, for the right notes or the right sounds. So if I go to, nothing's programmed by the way, it's just basically the standard sounds of what you pick up. So I've just used the standard sounds. I don't bother programming them. Now that's just a waste of time. I'd rather be playing it. Okay, let's see what we can find in here. So I want a bit of respect. There you go. This is erasure. That sounds like Tiffany, doesn't it? It's the same beat, you see, that's the thing. Here we go. Bit of respect there from Erasure. Here's one that Vince Clarke was in before. The band he was in, anyway, well, one he started out with, actually. Depeche Mode. This is New Life. Got to remember how it goes now. New life, new life. That's a bugger. That's any problem about learning by ear. You can always get tier one beat, and then you always think, now that beat will fit that beat. But the problem is, then you can't remember what the other beat was like. Well, not the beat, the actual song. Let me have a think about it. Let's have a think. Okay, New Life. Oh, come on, Steve, you know it. New life, new life, new life, new life. It'll come to me, I'll get it. Let's have a bit of Blondie instead. Bit of Blondie there, respect. I was trying to do that while on my other side of the brain was trying to learn that other one. New life, da 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 da. See, it's come to me now. The other side of the brain's woke up now. So obviously, number 7, we need that beat. So we got there in the end. I remembered it just a bit. What I was doing, I was playing with one side of the brain, the normal one, and then the other side of the brain, I just used that one to try and figure out how that one went. And it came to me in the end. It came to me in the end. It normally does. Okay, bit of share. One for Colin, he likes this one. Share. Hippumons. Oh, I know what that is. Hippumons. Bring it a bit more to the modern side. A bit of a chilled out one now. This one's a bit of Rag and Bone Man. And a bit of Human, but his version. Try and work out which is that one. The old, my version of Rag and Bone Man, and a bit of the old Human. Okay. There's some rare sounds on this thing, I tell you. One that gets called up quite a lot is this one. with my ears. Okay. Right, so what we've got here, actually, on my head, I've got a radio mic. Talks to that thing over there that's plugged into that thing there. It's like a little box. Plugs into your mixer. This thing talks to that thing, and they've just got normal headphones on. I suppose really I ought to really look into some a microphone already fixed to the headphones. It sort of nips my ear under this head. I have to have the hat on because it holds the actual controller around my head. But anyway, like Elton John keeps saying, I'm still standing. There you go, one for Elton John there. And funny enough, here's another one. Funny enough, I always call this Rocket. I don't know why, but it's on the Rocket label, or used to be on the Rocket label. Well, I've got 3,000 albums here, so it must be on here somewhere. I've got Yellow Brick Road in there somewhere. Oh. And the Beatles and God knows what. Okay. Right. I think you know what's coming up now. I call it Rocket for some reason. It's not Rocket. There you go, a little bit of Rocket there. And of course, let's do a bit of rock and rolling down the river. Rolling Down the River. Oh my god, haven't played that for ages. Oh, it's coming up to 2 o'clock. Let's do one of these then for Colin. Okay, well, it's quite a warm. I hope you enjoy that, guys. I hope you enjoy that. Thank you very much, Nelson, Helios, Paul, and Colin, and not the other Colin. Thank you. I'm absolutely shattered. Oh, yes, better. So yeah, you can see where this is coming from. Once I get this camera going here, you'll be able to see all these buttons that I press to bring in different sounds at different times. As I say, nothing's programmed. I don't program things and I don't do MIDI and things like that. I am basically your genuine article. What I hit on there, even whether I hit it right or whether I hit it wrong or whether I hit the wrong chord or whatever, it's live. And that's what you got to do. You got to have live nowadays. It's no good being all that. I mean, I've had loads of agencies after me. Yeah, do this, do that. But the problem is, once you get under an agency, the problem is there. You've got to do exactly what they say. And I know lots of bands that are absolutely pissed off. We go into loads and loads of studios all around the world. Sounds good, but you only get a day off. All around the world, you get pushed here, you get pushed there, interviews here, interviews there, and then you have to imitate of what you're doing. You have to practice. You know, you have to make out that you're playing something. And even some of these bands, I feel sorry for them really. Some of these bands, because you can tell they're not even connected and not even plugged in, like, and they're faffing around like this, like they used to be on the top of the pops, because they're pissed off. The music agency is the worst thing to be in. You just do not want to be in it. I'm pleased I've not been bothered. I've had loads of agencies saying you can do this, do that, we'll put you up, we'll do this now. But I don't want it. I don't want it. I'm all right. I've got myself a nice house with everything in it, as you can see, built up everything around it. £350,000. Yeah, it's all paid off and everything. So, you know, I've got everything here. I've got my studio, I've got my office, everything is fine, like, you know. I live with Nork at Git, but there you go, I just got to live with it now. But the thing is, you know, I've seen people, I mean, all the big bands, yeah, great, they're millionaires, multi-millionaires, they could retire, they could easily retire. I mean, I've sort of semi-retired on 50 grand. But I had a personal pension. I did it when I was 18, like, only put £24 away every year, and never even thought about it. Even when I left different works and that, I always put £24 away every year. And then they rang me up when I was 60 and says, "You've got 50 grand, what do you want to do with it?" First thing, pay off the mortgage. Boom, that's that. So that's a big chunk out of it then, you see. And then basically you just don't have to worry too much because the house is paid off, takes a bugger all to run it. I've got solar power. You know, it's just, why would I want to tour around the world in a bus or basically hotels, which basically all you're doing is getting your agents is going to be on your backs to do this, then you've got to do that. The thing that annoys me is that you've probably, like myself, these bands and agencies and artists, they don't want to be mucking about and standing around and all that for days. But the record company only gives you 3 albums a year. Now that's bugger all. I've done 37 albums within a year. It's not a problem. You know, but the problem is the record companies will not let you release that. They'll release it, or they'll release it when you're dead. When you're dead, they'll release it. You know, oh, we found this in the back cupboard. No, you didn't. He signed his life away once he fucking signed that stupid 360 contract. I'm dead against it. I will not go into the music business, and that's why I'm independent. And that's why I only sell my stuff on BANDCAMP, which is exclusive, and all the stuff like that, basically. But I'm in control of it myself. I can do what I want, when I want, where I want. I ain't going to be halfway around the frigging world the next morning up 6 o'clock, working 18 hours, going to about 40 or 50 flipping studios, miming things, making out what I do and all that. Because all you're doing, you're not making money for yourself. You are now the slave. You've signed your contract away. You've got £30,000 to actually make yourself up nice and sparse and that. We know how the bloody agencies work. And then basically they say, oh, we'll give you £1 million contract. Yeah, well, the £1 million contract, let me tell you about that £1 million contract. £30,000 gives to you. Fair enough, boom, job done. We're going to give £100,000 for touring. Well, that goes to old matey around the world, you know, old matey who looks after the guy that's in the agency, so he knows him. So he's give you £100,000 for that year to look after this client here that plays the keyboard. Then you've got studios, you know, we know in down the road there's studios with £100,000 again. Your £1 million contract, you don't get, okay? That is your loan. £1 million loan, okay? So really, you've got nowhere. All you've done is sign your contract away saying, thank you very much, you're going to look after my music business. No. Worst thing out, don't do it. Because the simple reason is you've just signed your life away. Look at these people, look at all the big bands and that. They're still going. What are they, in the 70s, 80s? They'll drop dead like while they're working because that's the bloody music business. It won't happen to me, and that's why for 63, I'm quite fit for what I am. A lot of people keep saying I'm 40, but yeah, I know. Yeah, just don't rule your stressor out. There's no need for it. Why stress? But the thing is, I feel bad for all these artists and that. Yes, it was what they wanted to do when they was young, and yes, it was not a great idea, you know. But unless you can buy that art license back and your music rights, you're buggered, like, really. You're just not going to get out that student band, like, you know. Unless you want to buy the rights off, buy your own studio. That's what they do, you see. If you're famous enough, you can buy your own studio, get rid of the other fucking low lifes and everything, all that sort of thing. Get rid of all the people that's basically using you as a walk here, run there and all that sort of thing. But for God's sake, just don't sign a 360 contract. For God's sake, just, if anything, sign a 50-50 contract. Now, 50-50 is whatever you make, they get. But they do all the work to get you known and around the world and that. And they're taking 50 thing. This is another contract that will be a lot better for artists. It's called the 50-50 contract. Now, I don't think agencies will be pushed about this. They'd rather have the 360. But the 360 basically is a waste of time because all you're going to do is basically give everything, all your music, all your past music, everything else, your rights, your merchandise, the whole lot. They're going to give it away. It's terrible. I spent 2 or 3 days reading all about it, all the small print, what people don't look at. And I tell you what, there's some frightening stuff in there. That's why I'll never sign a contract with a music business, and I'll just do this stuff myself, and I'm happy doing it myself. Not making millions and millions, but I'm doing all right. But you know, it's building up. But yeah, I do feel sorry for these musicians. The agencies just rip them off left, right, and centre. Music business is a terrible thing to be in. Just don't get in it. If that's the music business, and then that's basically your fame, I'm here. I don't want to be here, I'm here. Because if you go here, that's your life gone. You know, here I can do what I want. I can put music out what I want. I've got my relaxed stuff out, that goes out whenever I want. Check out BANDCAMP, that's all my stuff. I've got another company now, basically, that I've got to deal with them. I'll make the music, give it to you. We'll do a bit of a split, like, you know, I'll sell it off, or you sell it off. The company sorts of sells stuff all around the world. Colin's in it and all. Brilliant place. It's an absolutely brilliant place. Yes, the albums are dear. I must admit, when we used to do all that sort of stuff, they was probably £10 in the shops, but obviously things have advanced, so the cheapest ones that I have album-wise in vinyl is 27, and it can be 35 with post and packaging. Quality is brilliant, must admit, it's very good, and they do make them better because they don't make them the old way. They make them with fibre optic printers, And the quality is amazing, absolutely amazing. Probably, if not better, than vinyl. I didn't think I'd say that, but yes, it is really amazing. But yeah, they do cassettes and CDs and things like that. That's cool. That's one of the old shops they do. They sell it, give it all around the world. Everyone buys it online, so I don't have to worry about any of that. All I do is put the music on an album, do it online, and that's it. That's out of the way of mine. So I can concentrate back on my music. BANDCAMP, exactly the same way. I've signed up with another company for all my sync licensing, so that's all my 432 relaxed stuff. Like that's basically going to sync licensing. So that basically what that is for any of the music that gets picked. It could be for TV, film, advertising, stuff like that. Some of my stuff, 432, the relaxation stuff, could easily fit on films, could easily fit on stuff like Blade Runner, all that sort of thing. So yeah, it's funny business there, but you've got to have control. I've got 100% on rights on everything of these because that's why I've done all this. But that I haven't got an agent looking after me, and I ain't got no middlemen. But it works. It works. You're not going to push yourself out massively, but there again, 85,000 fans around the world. By just doing all this, I've never paid anyone to actually get advertising and that. I've just built it up, and people come to me. So you know, but by not going the music way and the business is probably where I'm getting on well, because I have. Week and week I have people saying, "Have you got a license? Have you got a label? Do you want to be a label? Do you want to be a..." No, I don't. Fuck off. I'm an independent musician. I'll do what I want, when I want, and I'll pick out and choose things. Mostly I just go around the care homes and entertain the care homes because, one, they're a better class people. Two, basically they're very courteous, and you know, they enjoy it. If you went out and did it to like a big sort of concert and stuff like that, you've got to do it with timing, you've got to do it with bloody earphones around there so they can't hear what you're playing for a start. Then you've got a bloody great lighting thing there that blinds you, and that, you know, all these problems. You know, it's a lot easier if you just do it all yourself, like, you know, simple. Anyway, guys, I'm rambling on. But anyway, thank you very much for joining us. Always a pleasure. And yeah, we will see you tomorrow on the Sunday Chill downstairs. Take care, guys. Thank you. Oops.